Welcome everyone once again to HogvilleNET Hoops. I'm your host Kevin McPherson. It is Friday. We are rolling into the weekend. The Razorbacks off to a great start in the NCAA tournament. 97-78 winner over Hawaii, the 4 versus 13 seed matchup on Thursday in Portland, Oregon, the West region. So Arkansas has won in advance. Obviously, not going to face the seed that you might have thought it would, but a really good team at High Point nonetheless. I think in some ways this may be the tougher team to actually play. I'm not sure that because I like the matchup when I looked at it personnel wise against Wisconsin. Personnel wise, I like the matchup with just about anybody that's not a one or maybe a couple of two seeds. So that would still be the case here with High Point, but this is probably the best team that Arkansas could face in a second round in terms of how connected the team is. I'm using that word a lot. This time of year, it's important. But we've got it up on the screen over here. Arkansas 14th ranked and 4 seed against the 12 seed High Point, the 83-82 upset winner on Thursday as well against the 5 seed Wisconsin Badgers out of the Big Ten. And so Arkansas and High Point are going to get the one of the late starts, 8:45 p.m. Central Time on Saturday in that West Region set round of 32 over there in Portland. The game will be televised by TBS and True TV. So that's, I tweeted that out last night when that information was handed down. Calipari said in the post-game presser or one of the interviews right after the game that Arkansas does really well playing early games, and he kind of complained about Arkansas being, getting a Thursday game and also get an afternoon game. But the truth was, and he goes, maybe the tournament committee didn't realize it, or whoever does the scheduling that Arkansas does pretty well in afternoon games. He said, "Watch now, we'll get a night game," and certainly Arkansas gets a night game. Don't know if it has anything to do with the conspiracy theory that Calipari's floating out there, but it certainly, if you want to look at it from the standpoint of you had a day off between games and you get a later start than most, we are a hobbled team. Your rotation's down. It's attrition again in March for Arkansas, just like it was a year ago, a Sweet 16 team. And Arkansas will be favored. This game, Arkansas is going to be favored 10 to 13 points probably when you look at the Vegas odds makers and the lines on this game. I personally think, and I'm going to go ahead and do this on the front end before I get into the matchup. I'm going to say it. I think this is probably, I think Arkansas is going to win. I think it's going to be probably, somewhere between a 6 to 9 point cushion, something like that. Let's go ahead. I'll do a score prediction now. I'm going to go ahead and go Arkansas 91, and I'm going to go High Point 84. So a 7 point win is what I'm going with for now in terms of this matchup. Both teams, by the way, averaging just a whisker below 90 points per game. High Point defeating teams by nearly a 20 point cushion, allowing just barely 70 points per game. When you look at the Kim Palm efficiency numbers, High Point is, I think, mid 60s in offensive efficiency, 145th in defensive efficiency. And a lot of that has to do with this the level of competition. It was a team that had not played High Point, had not played a high major opponent until it knocked off Wisconsin. The head coach was a little bit happy, salty combo talking about that post game. Like, they all said we hadn't played anybody. Well, now we have, and look what we did. And I can promise you they want to prove it's not a fluke. They want to prove that a 31 win season at this point, only 4 losses, 15 straight wins, hasn't lost a game since mid-January. That was on the road to a Winthrop team that came into Bud Walton Arena in November and damn near beat Arkansas. Arkansas had to finish a game perfectly in the last minute, down 5 or 6 to win by, eclipse that deficit and win by a one possession margin victory. And so we know, and then High Point since that time has twice beaten Winthrop after that mid-January loss. So it's a team that not only got its revenge but won the rubber match. But man, when I look at this team in a lot of different areas, it's a really good basketball team. And you could tell offensively, there's a true 8 deep. We talked about some of the performances yesterday on our post-game show after the Razorbacks defeated the Rainbow Warriors. Uh, the, uh, Wisconsin and High Point had already played prior to Arkansas's game, so we kind of went through some of the individual performances. But when you look at this team on the entirety of a season, it's what you expect. Their top performers in that win have been their top performers all year. It's just kind of how it is when you've played, 35 or more games to this point, or 35 games, you are pretty well defined as a team, and certainly in your personnel. The one thing that had no definition, again, when you haven't played a high major, you don't know how that's going to go. Wisconsin, I thought, was kind of a paper tiger as a 5 seed. Some really good wins, better wins if you look at uh, net rankings, two or three. When you look at net rankings, and when you look at or four wins, when you look at net rankings, and how teams are seeded in this tournament, their best four wins, Wisconsin, are better than any of Arkansas's wins. But they had a bunch of curious losses, quad twos, some other puzzling stuff, and Arkansas has been perfect outside of teams. Basically, Arkansas has only two losses against teams in the entire season that were not didn't end up in the NCAA tournament 1 through 4 seed. They haven't beaten a team like that, but they only played 5 games like that. So out of 30 games, only two losses against, and I'll put that stat up here in a little bit. So High Point, again, is going to be a tough matchup for Arkansas. When I look at this team, several things stand out to me. Certainly on offense, again, ranks fourth in Division One, at nearly 80, or excuse me, 90 points per game. We know Arkansas is right there. Two elite offenses in terms of scoring per game. Arkansas is ranked, I think, has moved up now to fourth or third in Kim Palm's offensive efficiency, still 48th in defense. But both of these teams averaging right around 90 points per game. Again, High Point 89.8. Only 9.3 turnovers per game. That's 14th in D1. Arkansas has been a little better for most of the season. Kind of high in the turnover numbers of late. Nothing earth shattering, just a little higher. Nonetheless, both teams are very similar that way. High Point averaging 16.3 assists. That's top 50 in Division One. Arkansas, they're very similar in a lot of ways statistically. High Point between 74 and 75% at the free throw line. That's about identical to Arkansas. Really good there. Uh, High Point averaging about 11.7 offensive rebounds per game. For a team that doesn't have a lot of size, there's a lot of quickness, there's good athleticism, and they're connected. Everybody understands they play to their strengths, they know what their roles are. And size, when you say size matters in basketball, it does. But at the same time, really in their top rotation, they go about 6'8", about as tall as they go. And they got a couple of other players going 6'6", 6'7", but they're all effective getting to the glass, rebounding the ball, just a relentless pursuit of tracking the basketball. And that goes for more than one way. You've got this team on defensively, first in Division One, enforcing 10.7 steals, collecting 10.7 steals per game. That is incredible. First in Division One. Fourth in Division One in overall turnovers forced, 16.2 per game. So this is a class. That team generates turnovers. Arkansas takes care of the ball pretty well, but we're going to find out with this quickness, know-how, and connectivity by this team on both sides of the ball if Arkansas struggles with that. Arkansas, conversely, doesn't turn teams over at a high rate. Nothing near what this team does. But Arkansas's got length, height, athleticism advantages, not quite as pronounced as what they had against Hawaii. Hawaii had some decent positional height, had a 7-footer, the leading scorer and co-leading rebounder and leading shot blocker, who could shoot the three a little bit and did some things. Had, one decent athlete, the Bullock kid, Trey Bullock, on the wing or two guard. But other than that, really not a whole lot. There really totally wasn't very much athleticism or quickness in that roster. This is a team that does have athleticism, quickness, maybe not as tall positionally, but again, these dudes are dogs, man. They really play really well together too. 31-4 says everything. And there's some interesting statistical things we're going to look at to get in play here. But this team does foul. It takes when you get that many steals and force that many turnovers, you're typically going to foul 18 and a half fouls per game. That's 281st in Division One. So, one of those teams that fouls at a high clip. That was the same scenario with Hawaii coming into yesterday. 35.6% this team makes on offense. 9.4 threes per game. That's strong. 35.6% from three. That's I think that's top 100 in Division One. Arkansas percentage wise is a better 3-point shooting team. But we know how that can go. And sometimes Arkansas's yesterday was cold against a good 3-point defensive team. Arkansas 4 of 21. This might be a game where Arkansas is going to need to be not only better, but quite a bit better from the 3-point line, regardless of how many attempts. Staying in contact there, because this team's making between close to 9.5 threes per game defensively, holding teams to 31%, from the 3-point line, which is again a strong number. It's pretty darn good. This is a team that shooting um, just under 50 or right around 50% from the field on the season. Good defending the 3-point arc. Maybe not as great, allowing teams on 2-point field goals 50%, but that's still pretty solid. It's not elite or great, but it's still okay. So, it's hit and miss defensively. Again, a team that gets a lot of steals, forces a lot of turnovers, and pretty competent overall. Um, it's a team that shoots 58.6% on 2-point shots offensively. That's top 20 in Division One. So they get a lightning quick guard, great change of pace, great change of direction, really understands the floor, really, really phenomenal feel and craft getting in his 3-point shot. Where you have players that are bigger that offset with side steps and different things. Part of it's quickness, but part of it is they also don't need as much space because they have enough size to get their shot off. But this guy creates more space because of how quick he does his side steps and in his 3-point shot creation. And then he sets you up where you think he might be setting up for a three, and then he gets a blow by on the drive, and now he's got a numbers advantage. Arkansas's perimeter defense, walling off drives, staying in sound positional integrity is problematic. The rim protection is shaky. Sometimes Arkansas does a good job there. Other times they have stretches where they don't do a very good job there. And Arkansas is always susceptible to the drive. When you see an undersized team shooting 58.6% on 2-point shots, it means they're smartly moving the ball. They're connected on offense. They're getting advantages. They're getting some clean looks that are not contested because of their good ball movement and good decision making. Again, we know they make good decisions. They don't turn it over a lot, similar to Arkansas. So this is going to be a challenge for the Razorbacks. Again, I've got it as a 7-point win and Arkansas getting back to the Sweet 16. Well, but let's look at a couple of things that favor Arkansas beyond, some of the matchups. I can't wait to see Rod Martin. That's the 5'10" senior guard I'm talking about. Second on the team on the season in scoring, leads the team in assists with 3.9. Yesterday, 23 points and 10 assists, a double double. Terry Anderson, the 6'6" senior forward's the team's leading scorer, second leading rebounder at 6'6". Yesterday, 15 points, 11 rebounds, had his own double double, 3 steals. He gets a lot of steals. He leads the team on the season in scoring at 16 points per game and averaging just over 6 rebounds. So these numbers aren't unusual, other than the rebounding was even better yesterday than the season number. Cameron Fletcher, the former 5-star, Moses Moody teammate with Brad Bill Elite back in the day, back in the previous coming out of the previous decade. His 6th year of college basketball started at Kentucky with Cal, bounced around. St. Louis guy, Rod Martin, that little point guard, also a St. Louis guy. Those ballers that come out of that St. Louis area, don't ever sleep on them. We talk a lot about Detroit and Pittsburgh with Arkansas's 2 freshmen. We know Chicago, New York City. There's other areas. Arkansas ain't too shabby per capita, but St. Louis is one of those places. But Cameron Fletcher, also a double-figure scorer this season and averaging 7.1 rebounds at 6'7" forward. Again, these are versatile. Some of these guys would remind you of a Justin Smith in terms of their rebounding production, ability to get double doubles, that kind of thing. Justin Smith, obviously the one and done transfer, who had a great season, helped Arkansas to its first Elite Eight in decades, and the first of two under the previous coaching staff. And then Chase Johnson, who is an interesting player, averaging about 6 points per game, but between a 48 and 50% 3-point shooter. That's typically all he takes. Only attempted 4 2-point field goals all season coming in the NCAA tournament. Didn't make any of them. Yet hit a 2-point layup proved to be the game winner against Wisconsin. His first 2-point field goal in 35 games. That was the only one this season. And he had 14 points yesterday, 4 of 6 from three. And he is one of the quickest releases you'll ever see. So this team can beat you with all kinds of combinations. Guards that can pull up from three, catch and shoot 3-point shooters, guys just consistently putting pressure on the rim with their athleticism for rebounds and transition scoring, half court slashes to the basket. Their guys will try to work their way in and get closer to the rim. You don't see as much pull up from mid range. Not saying they don't take them, but it's one of those philosophies. Let's get a little closer, but they're really good at cobbling together really solid offensive possessions. They're not perfect, really good team. But here's some things I think that helps Arkansas a little bit. When we just look at Arkansas's resume, we talked a little bit about it. Arkansas's 11-2 this season against 5 seeds or worse. So anything 5 or worse than that, Arkansas's 11-2. When you think about Arkansas playing those level of teams at neutral sites, just at neutral sites, Arkansas's perfect. They're 3-0 because Arkansas's 2 losses, one at home to Kentucky, the other one on the road to Georgia. Arkansas's beaten the rest of the teams. A lot of those were home games, but 3-0 at neutral sites. Texas Tech, a 5 seed in this tournament, and really had JT Toppin not going down, that was probably a team that was on a trajectory for a 3 seed. And Arkansas beat them with JT Toppin in at full strength. So, but it's a 5 seed. Arkansas won that game in Dallas. I was there to cover that one. The Vanderbilt game in just 2 games ago in Nashville, Tennessee, neutral court. Well, you could say it was a road game, but it wasn't. It wasn't Vandy's home court. It was Bridgestone Arena there. So, but Arkansas with an 11-point win in that title game, and then yesterday's win over Hawaii. So Arkansas's 3-0 against the again 5 seeds or worse that are on neutral courts. So there's something there. Arkansas is also unbeaten against quad 2, quad 3, and quad 4. Has not lost to a team like that, and so High Point fits into that category. Now, the flip of that is none of those other teams, quad 2, quad 3, or quad 4, has won 30 plus games with only 4 losses and is as connected at both ends as a team has to be to have that kind of resume. I don't care how many high majors they haven't played. They've played to the level of their roster build, of their talent, whatever, what have you, which speaks volumes. 15-1 again in their league. Haven't lost a game in 6. You have to go back 16 games ago, almost half the season. And then they get their chance at a high major and get the job done. And so Arkansas is not that vastly different than Wisconsin. I think personnel wise, Arkansas has more talent. I think Arkansas has done a better job of winning the games it's supposed to. Again, quad 2s, 3s, and 4s. So that is advantage Arkansas here. I do tip my hat to Arkansas. By the way, one of the reasons it comes across as negative when we say we just don't see the Final Four weekend kind of thing for Arkansas so far, based on what the team has shown us. I mean, what they've shown us. I've got it on the screen here. 0-5 versus the 4 seeds are better. Duke and Houston were on neutral courts. Arkansas had a chance against Duke and faltered late. We saw the struggles with the front line defending the other team's front line there. Houston really kind of owned Arkansas up there in the tri-state area up there in New Jersey. Back in December, Arkansas got destroyed at Florida. Michigan State, our second game of the year, early November, Arkansas loses by 3 on the road. And then Bama, I think Bama's a paper tiger. I've said it all year. I think Arkansas is a better team, better roster, a little better defensively. Bama got its water carried for it by the SEC officiating. I have zero doubt in my mind about that, including the Arkansas win in double overtime by 2 points, where they had to have a huge free throw disparity to even get to overtime, that kind of thing. But still that was a road loss. And Bama's a 4 seed. I think quality wise, Bama's probably maybe not as good as some of the 5 seeds in my opinion. But we'll see what Bama does. The last I checked, they were down by 10 with about 9 minutes to go against oh gosh, I've gone blank. Hofstra, a team that came in and beat Arkansas previous coaching staff in North Little Rock, what, 3 or 4 years ago. Okay, so we're getting all that out of our system now. But High Point's not a Final Four quality team, at least not to this point that we're aware of. The prime, the late start, I don't know that that helps or hurts either team. But to me, for an Arkansas team again that's been battling injuries, you hope to get Nick Pringle back. He went on the record saying that he wanted to play. Calipari said, "Let's hold you out against Hawaii." So I'm assuming he's going to be ready to go. He came into that game questionable and was available, so it wasn't like he was ever listed as doubtful or out. He just didn't play, and Arkansas grabbed a commanding lead early, 26-9, a 17-point lead, and never really looked, or excuse me, 27-6, 26-7, a 19-point lead, and really honestly didn't look back really. I think Arkansas maintained a double digit lead the rest of the way, even though it got down to 10, maybe a couple of times somewhere in there, and Arkansas led by as many 23. Didn't need Nick Pringle, but he gets a little more rest, and it gives guys like Acuff, who's been battling with the ankle. Malik Thomas got banged up a little bit, came back to the game, but they worked on him. He had to go out early in the second half. So you've got hogs that are gonna, the walking wounded to some degree. So buying a little more time helps. All right, so we've talked about what's at stake. If Arkansas wins this game, it'll be back-to-back seasons of Arkansas getting to a Sweet 16 under John Calipari, but it'll also be Arkansas's fifth Sweet 16 in the last 6 seasons. That is really good. In fact, Arkansas right now, not knowing if Arkansas is going to punch its ticket to the Sweet 16, we think they will. Tied with Gonzaga and Alabama. Let's see if the Tide lose today, or if they win today and find a way to win, lose in the second round or the round of 32 on Sunday. But for Arkansas's obviously got to take care of its business. But some people think Texas, the playing 11 seed that upset BYU. I didn't think that was much of an upset, honestly. But a lot of people are thinking Texas can knock off this Gonzaga team, a 3 seed. Texas again, the 11 in the Midwest, or excuse me, in the West. And this is, a scenario, in my opinion, where I look at it and I think, uh, Arkansas could be, if it defeats High Point and these Gonzaga and Alabama lose, we have every belief that Houston's going to keep winning and advancing the Sweet 16 and keep its hold on. It'd be perfect 6 out of 6 Sweet 16s in the last 6 years. But Arkansas may end up in sole possession. Maybe we don't know yet, with 5 out of 6, you go, well, what does that really matter? Well, it matters when you're talking about the strength of it, what has already been a proud, storied program. You're trying to get back to the Final Four, but the way you do that is to continue to build strong rosters. We know Calipari can recruit, but then you got to pay it off in March. And so, one step at a time. But you'd like to see Arkansas get there. When I came into this, my NCAA tournament takes when I did my Selection Sunday show, before we played a game, remain the West region's the weakest of the four. It's really between the West and the Midwest, and I said that before the on Selection Sunday, before there was really even time to study it a whole lot. I studied later, came back on it, and said, "Yeah, I've kind of confirmed my own thoughts." I think the East and South are probably stronger. In the East, even though Duke looked a little vulnerable as a 1 seed against the 16, trailed most of that game. I said Arkansas must be really good or great on offense. Well, you got that against Hawaii. I don't think anybody expected anything different. But better connected than usual, more so than usual on defense. The jury's still out on that. Arkansas gave up 78 points to Hawaii. Yes, Arkansas jumped out to that 26-7, 19-point lead pretty early, and then won by 19. And there were stretches of that game where Arkansas wasn't defending the 3 line, given clear path lanes for dunks to the basket. Some other problematic stuff in there, against a team where the matchup, by a mile favored Arkansas. And you can make the case, well, Arkansas kind of got in an up and down rat race. They built that big lead and were never really threatened. The teams that make it to the final weekend consistently, they may not be great every game, but if they're not great in every game, they're great in the moments they have to be, and they don't suffer as much as Arkansas has defensively for long stretches of games. And Arkansas had a lot of that against Hawaii. I'm not looking for a reason to be negative. I'm trying to be honest. I try to evaluate this the way I see it, called balls and strikes. And I still think we have not seen whether or not Arkansas has been better connected, more so than usual on defense. A great start to a game that was in shock and awe because of your athleticism, quickness, and things that Hawaii just hadn't seen this year playing out in the Big West. Eventually they made adjustments to that and kind of sort of was kind of even from there on out in some aspects. Again, we can debate that, but I don't go there. I mean, the team that shot 44+% overall field goal shooting, 10 out of 30 from three, that's not too shabby. 33%. That's you know effective shooting percentage, that's 50%. Arkansas 4 of 21. So Arkansas going to have to, we said Arkansas was still really good or great on offense. That was true except for three-point shooting yesterday. The free throw line was 88%. Arkansas astronomical. I think I said in the post game 35 of 51 on 2-point field goals against the defense again relative to its competition, but still holding teams to 46% on 2-point shots. One of the top marks in Division 1 defensively. So Arkansas was good, really good to great offensively, except for three, and then jury's still out on the connectivity on defense. All seven Hogs must produce with positive impact. All seven Hogs must produce with positive impact. Well, we didn't have Nick Pringle yesterday, so you're down to six. But let's talk about that for a little bit because I put some stuff together and let's run through it. Let's run through it. By the way, I should have advertised this in the beginning. We've got new recruiting intel on portal bigs today. And then another one of my wish list bigs that we don't know if they're going to go in the portal or not. I think would be one of the top portal prospects if he chose to do it, which we're going to get to that as well. But let's start with the top seven players. How did I have it on here? Must produce with positive impact. Well, how about Darius Acup Jr.? 24 points yesterday, 7 assists. Not necessarily his best game, but statistically it was typical of what we see from him. And on a day when Arkansas made only 4 of 21 from three, he was 2 of 5. That's 40%. Not up to his standard, but everybody else would love that. And made half of Arkansas's threes. Was perfect at the foul line, 4 of 4. Had some really nifty finishes at the basket. We know he's capable of that. Got a nice baseline mid-range J early in that game. And so I just threw it up today. I put it out on Twitter. Arkansas freshman guard Darius Acup Jr.'s National Player of the Year resume because we know he's got everything else locked up. 23 points per game. He's up to that now, right on the money. First in the SEC, seventh overall in Division One, 6.6 assists, best in the SEC, 12th in Division One, 44.4% from three. That's second in the SEC, seventh in Division One, 3.1 to assist to turnover ratio. His assist to turnover ratio was 3.2. It's coming down a little bit. His turnovers are going up a little bit. Assist about the same as they've been on average. So that's a little bit of a problem, just a little one right now. Nothing that I can say, oh, this is a definite trend. Small sample size, but it is a little trend. So that doesn't rank top 10 in Division One, 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. But for freshmen, when he was 3.2-to-1, he led all freshmen guards at that. So I don't know exactly where he is compared to the other freshmen, but it's going to be really good. Again, unanimous first team All American, the first in program history, SEC Player of the Year, Freshman of the Year, SEC Tournament MVP. Didn't have enough room in the tweet, but also obviously first team All SEC and the SEC All Freshman team. 530+ point games on the season, including that 49-point outing at Bama. 6 double doubles. The last coming 30 points, 11 assist against Vanderbilt in the win in the SEC Tournament Championship. And by the way, he had 2 30+ point games in that 3-game set over in Nashville during the SEC Tournament. All right. So where is Acuff right now? Well, everything is still mostly positive. Defensively, there are there are possessions where he looks even more porous than he did at times in the regular season. I mentioned the turnovers a tick up. The other thing that's a tick down is his overall field goal shooting. The overall field goal shooting, some of his drives, leaving a little short or a little off. And I think there's a couple of things going on here. I think the ankle thing is part of it, but I think also because he's been so good and established so many standards, it's not like he's dropped off much, but just a little bit, I think, is affecting it. And I think some of that drop off is just freshmen hitting a wall. So when most freshmen hit a wall, there are obvious drop offs. So it's not like that. I don't think he's hit a wall. I think he's feeling the resistance of a headwind a little bit. So it's not a wall, it's more of a headwind resistance that he's still fighting through. He's still playing through. He's still playing with a lot of offensive excellence, because that's where his bread and butter is. That's what makes him great, is an elite offensive player. But I think even that's been affected a little bit by, I think, just, the wear and tear of a 35 game season. He's been dealing with an ankle for several weeks. I think it's starting to show just a little bit. I have no doubt in my mind that this guy can step up and give you 30, 35 points efficiently, give you another 10 rebound, double double kind of assist, excuse me, double double kind of game, hit clutch shots, make clutch free throws. I'm not saying that that's over. What all I'm saying is just keep a little eye on it. He's still been great, but there are levels even of great when you're an elite player like him. There's the guy that has set standards of being in a, in a league of his own in some ways, or in a league with guys like Kobe Bryant and Pistol Pete Maravich and some of these other statistical uh, comparisons that we've seen. So he can be still phenomenal and maybe just a little bit off of that. All right, so let's move on to Trevor Brazil. How about this? Let's just take a look at senior forward Trevor Brazil. I put this out earlier. He leads the SEC in stocks. I keep talking about his combination of steals and blocks. The only player in the league ranked top 10 in both. But he's got 110 of those bad boys. He had 5 yesterday against Hawaii. 53 steals and 57 blocks on the season. That's number 1 in the SEC, and I promise you that's got to be top 10 to 20 in Division 1. I didn't look it up. I didn't do all that research, but it's got to be really, really good there. His 19-point game yesterday against Hawaii, by the way, put him in the 1,000 point club as a Razorback. That does not including whatever 100 and something points he had as a true freshman at Missouri and then transferred to Arkansas. 4 years, not 4 complete years, when he only played what 8, 9 games in his sophomore season, the first year that he transferred, um, or the first season he had after he transferred, but up to 1,014 points and counting. So that's rarefied air, baby. Good for you, Trevor Brazil. How about, and we know he made the all SEC, the SEC tournament all tournament team. He and Acuff were the two selected. Acuff also MVP after being snubbed for all league. And I said that was egregious. I said that was malpractice. Wasn't one of those deals where I really felt like, well, I mean, I acknowledge there's always 2 to 5 players that could have been on the team but didn't quite make it. I felt like this was an egregious snub. It was malpractice in my opinion. This guy's been that good, not only statistically, but big moments and big games, he steps up. Let's talk about, having positive impact in production. Last 6 games, he's averaging 18 points, 8.7 rebounds, 2.2 blocks, 56.8% field goal shooting, and 38.6% from 3 on really solid volume. All of those numbers are well above his season averages. That's significant. This dude's getting it done. Let's move over to Malik Thomas. I put 2 tweets out for him. Did you know his 21-point game yesterday against Hawaii moved him into second place all time at Arkansas in single season scoring for a freshman? Scotty Thurman held that for all these years. Darius Acuff passed him up a few weeks ago and has now obliterated it. Now he's walking down Todd Day, needing only 6 more points, Acuff, to be the single season all time leading scorer at Arkansas, regardless of class. So 6 more points to go to be sole possession of that, 5 more to tie it. We think he's going to get there against High Point. But how about Malik Thomas moving him? Now he's second behind Acuff in terms of freshman scoring at Arkansas in a single season. He's got 9 plus games. I've got it on here, 9 games of 20 plus points. Again, 21 yesterday. By the way, Acuff with his 24 points and 7 assists. Malik Thomas also had, along with his 21 points, had 5 assists. It's the first freshman duo in the history of, I'm told. I saw this tweeted and I retweeted it, so I believe it. In the history of the NCAA tournament to do 20 plus points and 5 plus assists, freshman duo on the same team. So kudos to that. By the way, he also had Malik Thomas actually 8 big rebounds. We know he's a strong rebounder at the guard spot. But outside of just moving into second in freshman scoring in a single season, 15.5 points. That's second on the team. He's been second in scoring behind Acuff all year. 19th in the SEC, so top 20 there. 3.9 rebounds. That's first among Hog guards. 2.5 assists. That's second on the team. 1.5 steals. That's second on the team and 11th in the SEC. 66 stocks. That's third on the team. That's steals and blocks. We know Brazil's first. Billy Richmond the third is second there. So we talk about it all the time. Malik is not a solid on ball point of attack defender, but he will make plays. He's got some good defensive instincts at times. He'll get some steals. And so, there's that. There's some defensive playmaking. 41.5% 3-point field goal shooter. I mean, damn near 50% in SEC games. He went way up there. But overall, 41.5, that's second on the team, and that ranks fifth in the SEC. 85% free throw shooter, that leads the team. It would be top five in the SEC if there were enough temps that the league would recognize it. So he'd be top five there. And again, the 920 plus point games. All right, so let's get ourselves into the next thing. I kind of try to be cute with this, but here was the tweet earlier today. When pigs fly, it was kind of a question and exclamation point, because my point is, on my three takeaways coming into this tournament before game was played, before anybody really dove deep on the brackets on Sunday, Selection Sunday, one of those three keys or takeaways about what this Hog team was all seven in your rotation stepping up and having meaningful production and impact. And we keep talking about guys doing better. We looked at TB's most recent games. We know that Acuff is consistently doing it. And we know that Malik Thomas, certainly offensively, but other things that he does. And we just kind of went through all that. But how about these other three? Now, I don't have Pringle on here. He didn't play in round one, and I didn't have enough room in the tweet, but he's played better as well. We know he was a huge part of Arkansas's win over Vanderbilt. A game that was close to the last 2 minutes. He had 6 rebounds, a couple of blocks, played a great defensive game, and also dove the floor in that game. I mean, he was everywhere. All right, but these three, how about all Arkansas wing and SEC all defensive team, Billy Richmond the third, last 10 games, last 10, 16 points per game. He averages 11 on the season, 4.8 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 1.6 steals, 1.1 blocks. Wow, 54.4% from the field. So I put the field goal percentage is important. His 3-point shooting's gotten a little better as well. I didn't squeeze that onto here. Has been a reliable 70+% free throw shooter, around 80% at times. But the field goal percentage to me is important because even though he's between 58 and 60 on the season, kind of hovered around there at times. When you look at his scoring production going up as much as he has, and he's still hovering around 50, nearly 50, 54.5% shooting from the field, it means that the production is efficient. But I love the way he's playing basketball because we know he's Arkansas's utility player, their glue guy, their high energy guy, their most versatile defender. That's why he made the all defensive team. Arkansas forward Malik Ewan. Now this guy's been much maligned, including by me as much as anybody. I just don't like any portions of games on a team like this that was put together to have the right combinations to make a Final Four run, and a guy with his talent and ability to play any large segments or swaths of games with recreation league intensity. I just don't abide it. But I got to give him credit, man. When you look at him since that Alabama game where he choked and was horrible, horrible. Since then, has he been game to game consistent? No, but he's been the most consistent that he's been. And because Knox has been out, basically leaving for good around that time, to that we may be for good, but it's been for good from then to now. This dude's had to play a lot more minutes. Remember, he was low man in the 7-8 rotation in minutes per game because he can be an eyesore on defense, flat footed, not rotating, not effort, just lost, ball watching. There's still some of that. It irks me. But I got to give him credit, man. Look, the last 9 games, this dude's averaging 12 points, 7.7 rebounds. He's had a couple of double doubles in there, and those can be significant. He had one yesterday against Hawaii. He had one against Ole Miss in that overtime game in the SEC tournament. 12 points per game, 7.7 rebounds, 58% shooting from the field, 77.1% from the free throw line. This guy, and his blocks, just he's one shy of being averaging 1 block per game in these last 9, but he's had a couple of games where he's given you a couple of blocks. usually when he's blocking a shot, it's after he already did 3 things wrong and gave his guy deep position around the rim, and he just goes up with a little effort and says, "Oh, maybe I should try now," and he gets a block. He's capable. He's not a rail thin 6'10" where it's misleading. You go, "Well, he's 6'10", but he doesn't have much to him, he's light in the pants." No, he's big enough that he should be. All right, so anyway, let's make it positive. Malik Ewing has been really good in his last 9 games relative to what he's been before that, and then starting to look more and more like production-wise, certainly on the offensive end. Defense is still where a lot of the problems are, and that concerns me. Where I try to project Arkansas past High Point when you face Arizona. We're going to have more time to talk about that. We are, but at minimum, the only chance you have is if you're top 7 because you're down from 8 with Knox out and maybe not going to be around till you get to the Final Four. But if you get there, but we're talking about how to get there right now, and you ain't going to do it with him. Cal told us he won't be back unless we make a Final Four. So your top 7 have to not just produce; it's got to be positive impact. And they're getting that. These players going through all of them have all somehow stepped their game up. Yet Arkansas still has defensive lapses. It's bizarre. This is a team that you look at a lot of things. There's a lot of things to really like. At the end of the day, it's those defensive issues in the paint, playing with force and resistance for too many stretches. Arkansas still got to be more connected on that end. They have not shown that they're making real progress there. Maybe in patches, but they need longer swaths and patches if they can't be consistent for 40 minutes. And I don't think they can, so they're going to have longer swaths of doing that. But it's still encouraging to see some of this. All right, we're 41 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET Hoops. I'm your host, Kevin McPherson. We'll ask now, we're going to plead, beg, please hit subscribe, like, and share. It helps us out if you like the content. Hype it up. Put comments in after the fact. Turn your notifications on. You know why? Because we talk recruiting on here and we bring you real intel way before this stuff really starts to heat up. And we know how intel can be. It's little breadcrumbs. Sometimes it materializes in the direction you think it's going. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's exactly right. And then something changes. And usually when we bring it, we do our best to vet it and make sure that it's not way off kilter. But how about let's do this first because it's going to lead into what I'm going to say. Um, Here, I got to get this off the screen. Here's the SEC versus, and I meant to do this earlier, but it'll be a perfect segue in the recruiting part. So Kentucky, and I watched this game today. Kentucky got some favorable calls or non-calls at the end. Doesn't matter. Great game. Looked like 2 3-point shots were made at the end of regulation. One to win it for Santa Clara, then it flipped, and Otega Owe, who's Mr. Postseason, 35 points, I think 8 rebounds, 7 assists. One of only 4 players to ever do that. How about Larry Bird? I think was Oscar Roberts. Somebody else, one of those. Bill Bradley, a bunch of Hall of Famers. Bill Bradley, an Ivy League guy who was great with the Knicks. So how about Otega Owe? But Kentucky wins in overtime against a really good Santa Clara team out of the West Coast Conference. So the SEC 6-1 so far in the NCAA tournament. 2 of those wins by Texas. So they had a play-in game and then knocked off BYU, the 6th seed. Going to play Gonzaga next tomorrow. But how about, and so there are 4 more games. Again, Alabama was playing last I looked, down 10 to Hofstra. That may be over by now, and I don't even know the result. Let's see if I can look that up. But Georgia's the lone team. Georgia's the lone team in the SEC to be eliminated to this point, unless I look this up real quick. And that Alabama game is merciful. I don't think it'd be over yet anyway. I think it would still be going on. Tennessee's up by 15 over Miami of Ohio, 38-23 with 4 minutes, 3:58 to go in the first half. Do not make anything of that. Number one, Tennessee builds big leads in first halves and squanders them in second halves. Miami has come back a lot this year, Ohio, to get games to overtime or figure out ways to win, and they were unbeaten until they lost the conference tournament, got one of the last at-large bids in the NCAA, and here we go. Won their play-in game against SMU out of the ACC. So we'll see about that. Um Alabama turned everything around, up 13 over Hofstra, 79-66 with about 2 minutes and 23 seconds to go. So it looks like Alabama's going to win in advance. So it looks like if Tennessee does what it's supposed to and Alabama does what it's supposed to, the SEC will move to 8-1 before Florida and Missouri play later tonight. So you got to figure as the one seed, Florida's going to win. The SEC's looking really good in the first round games. We've said this is the deepest league, just not necessarily the strongest at the top when you're talking Elite Eight and Final Four runs. But we're not talking about that yet. So the SEC doing maybe better than I thought they would be so far. But the Georgia loss, they got stung. They got beat out of the gates. They got destroyed. And a guy we've talked about a lot when it comes to recruiting and when it comes to, and when it comes down to the early talk and chatter about some portal potentials has been Somp Cyril. And so now we really are talking recruiting here, 45 minutes in. So we've talked about this a lot. I've had three different sources tell me that they think he's going into the portal, that multiple players for Georgia are looking to go in the portal, that he's one of them, and that that this source information is saying there is a connection between not only because Calipari had him committed and signed to Kentucky before Calipari came to Arkansas, but that this is the second portal season in a row where there's been mutual interest beyond that, and that these sources think because of that mutual interest, because they think Cyril's actually going to go in this time, that Arkansas is the front runner, the leader there, and that is they think that's where it's going. Three different ones have said that, so that's pretty significant. Now the season's over. Portal season's not quite open yet, but he's not distracted by any more season. He didn't have a great game, only got to play 12 minutes. Georgia plays a lot of dudes, and they sometimes like to go small and quick because of the pace they play out and the style they play. He's the SEC's top rim protector this year, still leads the league. And even though he didn't have a block yesterday, I think he had a rebound, a steal, and a foul. And that was it. But everybody on Georgia was bad. They got blown out, gave up over 100 points to St. Louis. But Psalm 2 Cyril, let's see what so the intel. So we're going to see if he actually enters the portal. So the intel today is I mentioned the three sources. One of the sources circled back to me because I texted him last night. We text a lot. And I just said, well, I guess Arkansas is the next destination. And instead of getting a text back, I got a phone call. And the source says, look, nothing has changed here. I think he's going in. I think it's going to be Arkansas. So the intel is the only update is that it's the same opinion, but we know as time moves on, things can change. And because of that, it's kind of important intel that a source that has some good connections here still thinks it's trajectorying that way, that there's a reunion there. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if he'll actually enter the portal. We don't know if he does, what his NIL demands will be. He is an elite rim protector. He's not the greatest of, I mean, he shoots 76% because everything is almost a putback dunk or a lob or something like that, right around the basket. But he's not a strong rebounder. 5.4 rebounds per game, 58% free throw shooter. But the blocks, man. I mean, he's at one point was averaging around between 2.8 and 3 blocks per game. That settled down late in the year. But as a player, I'm told is just not really happy there. This was similar last year, but then they ponied up for him in NIL. I don't know what kind of position he'll have for that, and what if he does go in the portal? Is the Arkansas thing something that he's going to just want to jump on? And Arkansas's got something good enough for him because I know Calipari wants to spend more on front line this time around than he has in the first two recruiting cycles. We've brought you that intel. So he could be part of that without being the end all be all. That's our 1A, and then the other guys supplement around him. I don't, I'd be surprised if that was true. I'd be surprised if that was true for Calipari. And if this guy wants 1A kind of NIL money when Calipari's got a couple of guys that he sees as 1A options and has his sight set on, then it might be something that blows up or doesn't happen right now, based on what I'm getting. And again, one of the three sources that was previously said, it looks like something could be brewing here with Arkansas, and our guess is that's where it would be. One is still saying, "Yep, I'm still there," and so that's the intel there. Now, this is the next thing is not any kind of intel. This is more about a wish list. I've brought in. We're going to talk frontline guys because it's going to be so important. Obviously, retention. We're going to see about Paulo Samito. People keep asking me, he redshirted this year. There's really not a straight answer in terms of will he factor into your playable 8 or 9 deep rotation. We brought you intel that Calipari's strongly considering going back to a 9 deep instead of an 8 deep, potentially a 10. with the 10 guy kind of still being a developmental guy that you could use if you had to, kind of like an Isaiah Seeley. But that would be, that's something to keep an eye on. If that happens, is Paulo Samito in the mix there? Is Arkansas going to retain Malik Ewan? He's doing a little better. I brought you intel before that Calipari's talking about maybe tweaking his role a little bit and giving him more looks as a perimeter. Maybe see if you can get his three. I mean, he's 3 of 4 on the season from three. He's a pretty good passer. I think one of the issues with him is that attention to detail and just being locked in. He tends to be careless with the ball. Not, he doesn't do anything necessarily until he starts doing it, until he flips a switch at some point. He'll go long stretches where he's just kind of lackadaisical, soft with the ball, doesn't come down strong with it on a rebound, doesn't handle it on some of his just DHO passes to guards almost get stolen. Some do. They get deflected. It's just kind of soft and sloppy a lot. But he does have skill. He can be a good passer. He's got the ability. He can again. We haven't seen him shoot three in any heavy diet, but maybe there's a way to tweak what you get from him. If you think you can get him to be more of a force, you're probably better off playing him mostly down low if you can get away with it, or let him back down from the mid post if he gets stronger with the ball. Again, a lot of this is between the ears and just that determination to play with consistent attention to detail and not just kind of whatever. And then at some point the light flips on. He's like, oh, I need to do this. And you want him being that guy when he steps on the court. Okay, so we're talking front court. We've talked a lot about how do you place Trevor in Brazil. You're not going to just replace him. You're not. I mean, Yaxel Lindenborg kind of stuff, not quite that the same, but where they can check a lot of boxes for your front line and do other things, shoot some threes. You're not going to just replace him. But we've talked about Mika Miernan being a 4 or 5 that can stretch the floor, put it on the deck and create shots, block shots. We've talked, about recently Paul Osarui out of the high school level, maybe reclass 26, being a guy that's can be face up, play the 4, really athletic, strong. Maybe could help you some at the 5, maybe be a 4 or 5 combo. We've talked about that. There's certainly going to be other portal options. We've talked about several, in addition to Cyril on the front line, but he's not a guy that would be a 4 or 5 replacement for a Brazil. And you may not get a true 4 or 5. It may be like a Donnie Freeman, who we've talked about out of Syracuse. Mutual interest there, good source information. We'll see if that gets any steam moving forward. But can be a stretch 4 a little bit. And maybe not help you at the 5, but be a stretch 4. And that would help offset what Brazil brings to the table. So we've gone through several of them. Keanu Dawes out of Utah. We've talked about him for 2 years now as a guy. And there's less source information about that other than it looks like he's really serious about portaling. And so he's a guy that I think would fit and can move in, a better rebounder than TB, not a rim protector really, but a much stronger rebounder and can shoot some threes. Actually, percentage wise, a little better than TB this year. But another guy I really like, and there's talk about if he does go in the portal, a lot of the portal recruiting experts say this guy's going to be highly coveted. And we saw him today against Kentucky is Alan Graves. I love this guy. I've been watching him all year. We have not talked about him. 17 points today, hit the big three that put Santa Clara up by 3 points with about 3 seconds left. And then, Tega Owe or whatever, how much ever was left on the clock, 4 or 5 seconds. Owe hits banks a 3 to beat the buzzer. Overtime, Kentucky wins. But Graves had a big 2-point field goal, I think off an offensive rebound late in that game that put Santa Clara back up. But 17 points today. But I love this freshman. He's a redshirt freshman. He's 6'9", goes 225. He's out of the state of Louisiana. So he's been a really good player for Santa Clara, but 11.6 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, 2 steals per game, right at 1 block per game, 1.8 assists. He's just got his hands in the cookie jar all the time. 51.7% field goal shooter, 42% from 3 on good volume at 6'9", and a 74% plus, right around 73.5, 74% free throw shooter. I love Alan Graves as a player. There's a lot of Jalen Williams high floor IQ for a guy 6'9" or 6'10", and he could be a 4 or 5 combo. He can be on the court with another big because he can stretch the floor, space it. He can play down low. He's got a good back to the basket game. His understanding of getting off the ball, finding a cutter, He's quick to pass out of the low post. Think about how good Jalen Williams was inside and out. This is a guy really dangerous in two-man game. I should have silenced this thing before we came on. I forgot to. So you're hearing the chimes go off. But I really like Alan Graves. There's a thought that, look, this guy can make a lot of money if he goes in the portal. We've seen some of these higher profile West Coast guys out of the mid-major areas get into the portal and then go back to where they came from. I mean, you just never know what's going to happen. We don't know there's a pathway here. There's no source information or intel saying there's connection with Arkansas and this guy. I'm just talking about you want to find someone that can slide in and maybe give you the versatility as a 4-5, knowing that Calipari does limit how deep he's going to go with his overall roster. And so positionally, you're kind of shallow. You don't have a lot of depth. So it might help to get someone that can play more than one position. This guy could be a 4-5 for you. And so, again, this is just a name I'm throwing out there in terms of what I would be interested in seeing. Okay, let's sign off with a couple of things here. Congratulations to five-star future hog, Jashawn J.J. Andrews, the 6'6" wing out of Little Rock Christian Academy. Two-time now Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Arkansas. That came out earlier today. Congratulations to J.J. Andrews. Very recently was named the Max Preps Arkansas Boys High School Player of the Year. So he continues to put those accolades together. I hope he lands on some of these national All-American teams. He's certainly deserving. I understand he missed 42 days. I know there was a bunch of games he missed. I know his team didn't advance very far in the Arkansas State tournament at his classification level. He was basically a one-man show over there. No disrespect to some really good kids and really good players, but when you're talking about national All-American teams, some of these boxes, weren't checked. He didn't play on a national stage this high school season. No nationally televised games. I think all of that's restricted that. But when you look within the state of Arkansas, some really good players, some great players. Jacob Lanier going to Nebraska, great season at Parkview, state championship run season. You look at other guys around the state that are younger, and that Arkansas is recruiting. Even got an offer out to Anthony Spratt Jr. When I talk about Elijah Braun over at North Little Rock, Anthony Spratt Jr. at Benton, there's other great ones. Bryant's dynasty, back-to-back state titles, guys like R.J. Young, Kamarian Bede, Division One talents, maybe not on the same level, high major as some of those other names I mentioned. So it's not like J.J. Andrews that this is a cakewalk racking up these awards. A lot of deserving players in this state. But kudos to J.J. for getting that. Next up for him is maybe something else in terms of postseason honors, but he's got the McDonald's All-American game. He'll have some other all-star platforms. And we're going to sign off. We don't really do this, but this guy was a great player at Morrilton High School. He was a top 100 recruit, part of that great class of 2022 for Arkansas and Eric Patrick Musselman. Nick Smith Jr., the number one player in the country. Anthony Black, a top 10 rated 5-star, who's been wonderful in the NBA, a lottery pick. He and Nick Smith Jr. both first rounders. Jordan Wallace, a 5-star, one and done in his own right in that class, an early second round pick. But how about guys like Joseph Pinion, Darian Ford, Barry Dunning Jr., all three of them at the mid-major level at some point. But Barry Dunning Jr. at Pitt, a double-figure score, playing in the same conference as Joseph Pinion, Darian Ford, led Temple in scoring this year. Really good player. There was some chatter about him being a fringe, NBA summer league and having a chance to be a two-way, maybe make it maybe somehow get a G League opportunity, something. But he's had a really good year at Temple. They both play in the American Athletic Conference. But how about Joseph Pinion and what he did after he transferred 2 seasons at Arkansas, same class of 2022, just a great class, but he transfers, went to Arkansas State, had a really good year last year with Brian Hodgson, a good A-State team in a tough mid-major Sun Belt conference there. And then once Hodgson got that promotion, that opening came up at South Florida, the American Athletic Conference, arguably the best mid-major conference out there. It's right, it's up there. Takes the South Florida job. They win the American Athletic Conference, and they make it to the NCAA tournament as a 12 seed. Fell behind big against Louisville, the 5 seed. Fought their way back, lost by 4. But how about Pinion yesterday? 27 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals in 38 minutes, and a 4-point loss. And he had a really good season, 14.6 points per game. He was a strong 3-point shooter on volume at both A-State and at South Florida this year. Does a lot of other things that catch, nearly 4 rebounds per game, about the same as Malik Thomas, 2.5 assists, about the same as Malik Thomas, but he also gets steals. Similar to Malik Thomas, they kind of statistically very similar. I know it's not Arkansas in the SEC, but still, this is a really good Division I player. But I really like the fact that Joseph Pinion goes out with such a strong game, getting to the NCAA tournament. Let's not forget at ASU last year, that team went on the road and beat a good Memphis team. Penny Hardaway, that team was ranked all year, won their league, and ended up being an NCAA tournament team with a good seed. Went on the road and upset them. Pinion had a really good game that game. As a freshman at Arkansas, he had two double-digit games against Ole Miss and Missouri at home, games that Arkansas was on the path of losing because that team couldn't shoot, couldn't space the floor. Defenses were packing in. EPM puts Pinion in the game, and he turned those games around and scored double figures. That was a team that was 8-10 in the league and barely got in the NCAA tournament. When you consider had they lost those two games, that's not an NCAA tournament team, and Pinion was as good a reason as any. So this guy, even as a freshman at Arkansas, where it didn't work out for him in 2 years, still had an impact on Arkansas making the NCAA tournament, a team that went on to the Sweet 16. We can talk about Anthony Black, Nick Smith Jr. in and out of the lineup with injuries and had some huge games. Jordan Walsh, who got better and even better defensively and production wise and all that. But a guy like Pinion made his mark at Arkansas in a way. It's not a stretch to say that, and ended up going out the right way. All right. Thanks again for joining me on HogvilleNET Hoops. Appreciate all of you. Hope you're rolling it, flying in your weekend, loving it, and it's all good, all great. Until next time, be great in all your endeavors. I know you will be, and you'll be really soaring if Arkansas picks up that high win over High Point on Saturday. Of course, we'll be back on Saturday. And I don't know if it'll be once or twice because it is a late start. But until next time, appreciate all of you. We'll see you soon.